Let's compare the physical number of international tourists arriving in Spain against the total amount of money they spent. By the end of 2025, Spain welcomed a record 97 million visitors. That's a 10.9% increase in physical arrivals compared to pre-pandemic levels. But as you can see, tourist spending surged by 20.4%, generating 135 billion euros in a single year. That sheer volume of foot traffic places an enormous physical weight on the country's most popular hubs. Long-term residential neighborhoods are being consumed by short-term rentals, which drives up local housing costs and stretches municipal infrastructure to its absolute limit. To stop this localized bleeding, the Spanish government's 2026 action plan directly targets the short-term accommodation market. For the first time, the total number of tourist rental properties in top destinations actually shrank as local authorities began strictly enforcing new regulations to protect their local residents. Spain's deep, layered history makes it incredibly desirable, yet that exact appeal threatens the country's livability. To survive the economic windfall, Spain is being forced to rewrite the rules of how it shares its heritage with the rest of the world. To understand why this heritage is so dense, we have to look at the ground it's built on. The Iberian Peninsula is a rugged, mountainous landmass operating as a transcontinental bridge, sitting right at the intersection of Western Europe and North Africa. This map shows the peninsula's three drastically different climate zones. You have the wet oceanic north, the hot, dry Mediterranean coast, and the semi-arid interior. This harsh, fractured geography naturally isolated early inhabitants into distinct pockets, effectively separating communities from one another. The Romans, and later the Visigoths, were the first to lay a unifying infrastructure over this difficult terrain. They engineered roads and aqueducts through the mountains and arid plains, attempting to physically bind these isolated pockets together. Because the landscape was so difficult to traverse, early settlements were not easily erased by passing time. Spain's geography preserved distinct historical epochs in amber, creating isolated foundations that future empires would simply build right on top of. In the year 711, a weakened Visigoth kingdom left the door open for a new arrival. Berber and Arab forces of the Umayyad Caliphate sailed across the Strait of Gibraltar from North Africa, swiftly taking control of the peninsula. They established the territory of Al-Andalus. Over the next 3 centuries, this Islamic state became a global center of commerce and learning. They introduced complex irrigation systems to the arid plains and funded a massive expansion of architectural and scientific innovation. During this time, cities like Córdoba and Seville hosted a vast overlapping population. Muslims, Christians, and the Jewish Sepharad community frequently interacted, trading goods, translating texts, and creating a highly diverse, interconnected society. But the northern Christian kingdoms eventually pushed south to reclaim the territory. This grueling military campaign, known as the Reconquista, dragged on for 700 years. The borders wavered back and forth across the mountains until the final Islamic stronghold, the Emirate of Granada, capitulated in 1492. 7 centuries of bloodshed and cultural fusion left behind an architectural and historical density that exists nowhere else. Roman ruins, Islamic mosques, Jewish quarters, and Catholic cathedrals were built shoulder to shoulder, layering atop one another to form the modern Spanish landscape. That deep historical fragmentation carried straight into the modern era. Following the death of Francisco Franco and the end of his dictatorship, in 1978, a new constitution successfully transitioned Spain into a fully functioning parliamentary democracy. This diagram illustrates the political system they designed to honor those ancient, geographically isolated identities. Spain is organized as the state of autonomies, where the national map fractures into 17 distinct regional communities. These regions operate with vast decentralized powers. Places like the Basque Country, Catalonia, and Galicia maintain their own distinct languages, manage their own healthcare systems, and even deploy their own autonomous police forces. So when a record-breaking 97 million international visitors arrive in Spain, they are not just flocking to a single monolith. They are traveling through a highly decentralized mosaic of 17 distinct nations operating within a single border. Historically, that tourist traffic has been wildly unbalanced. The coastal tourism boom that began in the mid-20th century trained decades of visitors to concentrate in a few specific seaside hubs, directly fueling the modern housing and environmental crises in those specific areas. To correct this, the Ministry of Industry and Tourism is executing a strategy they call triple sustainability. The goal is to ensure that the massive economic profits from tourism no longer destroy the social and environmental fabric of the host cities. The primary tactic is redistribution. The government is intentionally steering visitor traffic away from the saturated coastlines and directing it toward the underpopulated rural interior, a region often referred to as emptied Spain. The data shows this is already working. By the end of 2025, these historically rural and less densely populated regions saw their visitor numbers surge by roughly 60%, easily outpacing the growth of the traditional coastal hotspots. Spain's survival as a premier destination relies on utilizing its vast, fractured geography. Instead of letting its most famous cities sink under the weight of 97 million people, the country is using its sheer size and decentralized heritage to safely absorb the modern world's obsession with its past.